Before starting the video, make sure to leave a like and a comment. Otherwise, I will appear in your room at 3 in the morning, and I believe you would not want to see me around at 3 am, right? Anyway, let's get into the video. One certain day, our hero woke up to find a lizard lying in his bed. The lizard introduced himself as Noi, and he said that he had a mission to protect a princess from an evil sorcerer who wanted to destroy the world. Noi asked Yu Yuhi to lend him a bit of his strength to help in this task. Thinking that he must be hallucinating, Yu Yuhi grabbed the lizard and threw him outside the house, and right after that, he noticed that his neighbor had seen him tossing the lizard out. When he returned to his room, he was startled to realize that Noi had already come back once again. Noticing that Yu Yuhi was completely confused, the lizard asked him to try to understand what was really going on. Yu Yuhi held the lizard by the tail and warned that this was his own personal space, and since he had not invited the lizard in, he should simply leave. But Noi insisted on catching his attention, so Yu Yuhi ended up throwing him out once again. Later, Yu Yuhi headed to school, still believing that perhaps everything was just a product of his imagination. But Noi suddenly appeared again on his shoulder, scaring him so much that he fell off his bicycle. Noi explained that now they were connected and could not separate very far from each other. And later, in class, the teacher noticed that Yu Yuhi was injured and asked what had happened. He realized that he alone could see Noi, so he explained that he had run over a lizard earlier that morning, and that had made him fall from the bicycle. He also added that the creature had now turned into a ghost and was haunting him. Suddenly, a few classmates approached the teacher, distracting her and giving Yu Yuhi the perfect chance to slip away unnoticed. Noi explained that only Yu Yuhi could actually see him, and if he thought he was going insane, he should just look at his own hand. Yu Yuhi noticed a ring on his finger and was shocked to see that he could control a kind of power through it. When he tried to test it out, the teacher showed up again, believing that he was delirious from the fall, and she demanded the assignment he was supposed to hand in. Yu Yuhi promised to deliver it soon and then asked Noi if this power could be used to manipulate other people's bodies. Noi confirmed, and Yu Yuhi used the ability to lift the teacher's skirt, only to provoke her. She became furious and tried to catch him, but he managed to escape and ran home. Noi then explained that he had two main objectives. The first was to find the princess and prevent the world from being destroyed. Yu Yuhi did not want to get involved, saying that he had no interest in saving the world and that he wished to continue his life as normal. Noi mentioned that there were other allies around, but Yu Yuhi, remembering what his grandfather had told him about avoiding involvement with others in order to live in peace, decided not to get involved and to leave things aside. He went out to buy food, leaving Noi wondering why he had to work with someone so fearful. And suddenly Noi realized that an enemy was nearby. Yu Yuhi felt as though he had been stabbed, although it was only a sensation, and following Noi's advice, he fled and ended up in a higher place. Exhausted, he came face to face with a mud monster, and Noi told him to use his ability to escape. But they were both taken by surprise when the neighbor appeared and struck the creature with a punch. Noi understood that she was the princess he had been looking for, and she introduced herself as Samadare. She realized that Noi was confusing Yu Yuhi's mind, and that night, Noi began to train Yu Yuhi to learn how to fly. But he struggled greatly, since this power relied heavily on physical strength, meaning he would have to train extensively if he wanted to become strong, and Yu Yuhi was uncertain if he had what it took to be a knight. Yet Noi insisted that saving the world would bring great rewards, and Yu Yuhi tried once more to expel the lizard for good. But Noi refused and continued to cling to him. Even when Yu Yuhi went to dinner, he still felt that strange sensation from the creature of the previous day. Reflecting on everything that had happened, he realized that Samadare herself also did not have much understanding of her own Babel. Despite being a princess, just like him, she had been thrown into this situation out of nowhere, and Yu Yuhi was left with the impression that he had already met Samadare somewhere before. At that moment, his teacher Hisame appeared, bumping into him. She was Samadare's sister and immediately asked what he had done with her. Samadare revealed that she was a princess and that Yu Yuhi was a kind of knight, leaving Hisame suspicious that he was influencing her sister. Later, Yu Yuhi went to eat and was surprised to see Samadare taking part in a food-eating challenge at a noodle shop. The following day, he saw Samadare again at school, and she led him to the rooftop to show him the enormous hammer that hovered in the sky, telling him that it was the biscuit hammer created by the sorcerer to destroy the planet. It had been created to crush the planet as though it were a mere cookie, smashing it entirely. She asked Yu Yuhi for help to stop that from happening. Samadare climbed onto the railing and jumped, forcing Yu Yuhi to catch her, and she told him that he would always protect her and, in return, she would protect him. She explained that she wanted to destroy the hammer because she wanted to destroy the world with her own hands, and somehow Yu Yuhi accepted becoming her partner and joined her on this mission. But then he heard his grandfather's voice telling him never to forget to live alone, and when he realized, Noi's face was pressed right up against his, so he immediately threw the lizard outside. He decided to go out running to gain some more physical conditioning, and at the park he once again ran into Samadair. After doing only a few push-ups, Yu Yuhi was already tired, so Samadair let him climb onto her back while she performed hundreds of push-ups without even breaking a sweat. After that, she invited him to her house for dinner. When he arrived, Yu Yuhi went to use the bathroom but by mistake ended up entering Hisame's room, earning himself a scolding. Even so, since he was her sister's guest, Hisame let it pass and they all sat down to have dinner. Samadair mentioned that the food had been prepared by her sister and wanted to know why Noi was not eating. Noi explained that he fed directly from Yu Yuhi's energy and did not need to eat. Yu Yuhi made fun of Noi, who replied that he did not like being treated like a fool, and Yu Yuhi realized that it had been a long time since he had actually lived alongside other people. The memories of his grandfather returned to his mind, showing how he was still bound by the old chains, and later Yu Yuhi went back to training and managed to float for about 4 seconds, which was already a considerable improvement, though he felt it was not enough. He thought that if he faced the mud golem again, he would stand no chance, and Noi wanted to know if Yu Yuhi had any goal at all, but Yu Yuhi did not even know what he wanted, which left Noi very frustrated. Even without having great plans at that moment, Yu Yuhi only wanted to free himself from the shadow of his grandfather. Afterward, he met Samadair and asked her why she wanted to destroy everything. She answered that she wanted to possess the world, but since the world would continue to exist even after her death, it would never truly belong to her. That was why she intended to destroy the entire world before the hammer could do it. Only then would she feel that she had total control. She pulled him up to the rooftop and leaped from one building to another, saying that she believed that one day Yu Yuhi would be able to go even farther than she could. The following morning, while he was running, Noi warned him that with his current power, Yu Yuhi would not be able to match a mud golem. If a golem were to chase him, he should cross the river to buy time until Samadair appeared. Suddenly, Yu Yuhi saw a mud golem behind him and complained to Noi that he could have warned him earlier, but Noi said he had not sensed any killing intent. The monster crossed the street and quickly caught up with Yu Yuhi, who used his power to dodge, but ended up being grabbed anyway. Just when he was about to be struck, Samadair appeared on the other side of the river. Samadair hurled a car at the golem, which dodged, but she leapt toward the monster and landed a kick that defeated it instantly. The next day, Yu Yuhi went to have breakfast at Samadair's house, which greatly irritated his teacher. Yu Yuhi realized that if he did not take training seriously, he would not last long, but then his aunt called, informing him that his grandfather had been hospitalized and asked him to pay a visit. His uncle even offered to help with the travel expenses so he could go there, but Yu Yuhi said that he was working part-time and would try to go home if he managed to. Even without a true reason, Yu Yuhi was only looking for an excuse to avoid meeting his grandfather. So he went to the river, deciding to practice his movement abilities since he still did not feel prepared for a real fight. He tried to cross the river with his powers, but ended up falling into the water right at the beginning. Later that night, Yu Yuhi developed a fever, and because of the link between him and Noi, the big lizard ended up catching a cold as well while lying down. Yu Yuhi remembered the sensation of his grandfather's chains pulling him under the water. The next day, Samadair appeared in his room, and feeling ashamed of his own weakness, he apologized and begged her not to leave him alone. Samadair told him that she too had once been weak and encouraged him to talk to his grandfather. That was when Yu Yuhi explained why he held so much resentment toward him. Once, he had brought a classmate home, but his grandfather chained the boy up and locked him in the storage room. The old man believed that humans were enemies and that friends would always end up betraying. And for that reason, he forbade Yu Yuhi from forming attachments with anyone. He was terrified of reliving the trauma of those cold chains, but Samadair promised to destroy anything that could bind or frighten him, telling him not to worry. And soon after, Hisame also came over and decided to cook for everyone. When Yuyuhi got better, he returned to the river determined to leap across to the other side, and Noi warned that it might be too much. But Yuyuhi only jumped backward and swore that one day he would surpass the hammer. The next day he went back home, and Noi suggested that he could heal his grandfather's illness. But Yuyuhi confessed that he actually wished his grandfather would die. For 10 years, the old man had repeated the same 3 rules. Enemies attack from the front, friends betray from behind, and in the end, no one is truly worth trusting. When he arrived home, Noi asked why he was in the living room, and Yuyuhi explained that since he had started college, his uncles had moved in to live with his grandfather. Noi wanted to know about his parents, but his cousin called him to dinner before he could answer. After dinner, Yuyuhi took Noi to his father's memorial and explained that his father had been a police officer but had suddenly disappeared. Months later, a criminal was arrested who confessed to killing the officer and burying him in the mountains. After that, Yuyuhi's mother also disappeared, and his grandfather lost all faith in humanity, warning his grandson not to follow the same path as his father. If Yuyuhi ever disobeyed, he would be chained up for days. Noi asked if he truly hated the criminal who had killed his father, the mother who abandoned him, or the grandfather who mistreated him. Yuyuhi answered that he hated everyone for allowing it all to happen, and Noi warned him that such feelings only brought suffering. But Yuyuhi said he was already unhappy enough, and the next day his cousin took him to see his grandfather, leaving the two alone. His grandfather praised Yuyuhi's strength, and to Yuyuhi's surprise, the old man apologized, admitting that he had been wrong and that perhaps he would never be forgiven. Overcome with anger, Yuyuhi shouted that apologies would not change anything and stormed out of the house, accusing his grandfather of unloading all of his problems onto him. While running away, Yuyuhi encountered the mud golem, and Noi told him to flee toward the mountain. As he ran, Yuyuhi realized that the golem was slow but relentless, and fighting would not help since his strength was nowhere near the monsters. Suddenly, the golem caught up with him, forcing Yuyuhi to dodge and fall into the water. Crawling up from the bank, he began to lose consciousness but then saw Samadare. He admitted that he had always tried to escape his grandfather's chains only to discover that he could not live without them, and now he wanted Samadare's orders to forge new chains. Even knowing it was only an illusion, he felt happy to see her before dying, but she encouraged him, promising a reward if he survived and telling him not to give up. Back in reality, Yuyuhi believed that he might actually win and grabbed a stone. He used his power and managed to damage the golem, and that gave him real hope, because if he could hurt it, then perhaps he could truly defeat it. Cornered at the edge of a cliff, he jumped, using his power to soften the fall, and the golem leapt after him. But Yuyuhi made the creature crash headfirst, destroying it instantly. Just as he began to celebrate, his cousin called to say that his grandfather was in very bad condition. Yuyuhi visited his grandfather briefly and then left, believing that years of suffering would not disappear simply because things had changed a little. He thought that his grandfather had never loved him, but Noi said that all of it, strange as it seemed, had still been a form of love. Remembering happy moments from childhood, Yuyuhi felt a trace of affection and asked Noi to save his grandfather, sealing the contract between them. Back in the city, Yuyuhi saw Samadare in a dream, where she was about to reward him with a kiss, but she vanished before it could happen, leaving him very frustrated. Later, while running, Yuyuhi trained with Samadare, and he managed to complete 50 push-ups, feeling more confident about facing the mud golem. At that moment, Henjetsu appeared, claiming to be an ally of justice, accompanied by a dog named Ludo. The group soon realized that Henjetsu was also a knight, and he said that he had been observing them from afar, but had never truly spoken with them. He said goodbye, promising that they would meet again. At school, Yuyuhi asked Noi if he knew Ludo, but Noi said he could not remember anything from before he met Yuyuhi. Later, Yuyuhi wondered if Henjetsu was actually strong, thinking perhaps he was not that impressive at all. On his way home, Yuyuhi saw Samadare, and suddenly her wallet was stolen by Henjetsu. Samadare rushed at him, but Henjetsu evaded effortlessly, and Ludo explained that Henjetsu was a martial arts specialist, so ordinary attacks would never work against him. Yuyuhi even tried to intervene, but ended up using Ludo as bait to make their rival stop. He stopped, but was soon knocked down by Samadare, and laughing. Henjetsu said he only wanted to test her strength, warning that relying solely on physical power would not always solve problems. That night, Yuyuhi once again dreamed of Samadare and finally received the kiss he had long desired, strengthening even more his determination to become a reliable ally for her. The next day, while they were running, Samadare blushed as she remembered the dream, and Yuyuhi was genuinely overjoyed. After that, the two of them ran into Hangetsu again at the park, and still irritated by what had happened before, Samadare immediately challenged him to a fight. While they were dueling, Yuyuhi asked Ludo when was the last time he had seen Noi. Ludo quickly deflected the question, saying instead that Yuyuhi didn't really seem like someone willing to protect the entire world. That turned into an argument, and the two of them ended up clashing fiercely. In the end, everyone was exhausted except for Hangetsu. Casually, he asked Samadare if she liked manga and even showed interest in borrowing some. Back at Samadare's house, Hangetsu was very surprised when he met Hisame and immediately fell for her at first sight, though Hisame didn't pay him any attention and simply invited Samadare to join her for coffee. After eating, Hangetsu borrowed some manga to take home, and in that moment Yuyuhi chose to hide from him the whole matter about destroying the world. For Samadare, however, that didn't matter at all. What she wanted most was simply to have Yuyuhi by her side. Yuyuhi was overjoyed, convinced that Samadare was like an angel, and that was when a mud golem appeared out of nowhere near a store and charged at him. Even while running, the creature refused to give up chasing and trying to grab him. Then, out of nowhere, Hangetsu arrived, dodging its attacks and striking its weak points, especially its eyes. In only a short time, Hangetsu defeated the monster, and Yuyuhi realized that Hangetsu had enough strength to interfere with Samadare's plans. Yuyuhi even felt a sudden aggressive impulse. Hangetsu noticed it, but dismissed it, saying that Tsuyumi had mentioned he could even train Yuyuhi if he wanted. During the next day's training, Hangetsu asked Samadare to tell him something about Hisame, but she brushed the question aside. To coax some information out of her, he even tried offering meal vouchers, and then suggested that Yuyuhi should start training seriously to avoid problems later. At school, Yuyuhi saw Hisame in the cafeteria, and she greeted him, but right after that Hangetsu appeared at her side. Hangetsu immediately introduced himself to her, handing over a business card that basically said he was a jack of all trades. He began complimenting Hisame, and Yuyuhi thought the way he spoke made him sound like some kind of swindler. When Hangetsu left, Hisame recalled that Hangetsu's younger brother was 1 year above Yuyuhi in high school but hadn't shown up in quite a long time. Curious, Yuyuhi asked Hangetsu about it, and he replied that his brother was traveling abroad. As soon as Hisame showed interest in the subject, Hangetsu hurried off to continue talking with her. At that moment, Yuyuhi realized that perhaps the key to influencing Hangetsu was through Hisame. But Noi grew tired of all the schemes Yuyuhi was entertaining, telling him that he was acting like a spoiled child who simply destroyed anything he didn't like. Yuyuhi admitted it, because he knew it was true. When he got home, Yuyuhi was startled to find Hangetsu sitting there casually. Even Ludo tried to mark territory on Yuyuhi's bookshelf, and Yuyuhi had to stop him. Hangetsu suggested that they binge-watch an anime together, thinking it might help Yuyuhi learn how to talk more naturally with Samadare. The next morning, when they went to have breakfast at Samadare's house, they unexpectedly ran into her father, who had just returned from a trip along with her sister. The man was a bit confused to see two unfamiliar young men there, but quickly relaxed when he learned they were his daughter's friends. Later, Hangetsu invited Yuyuhi to go out for drinks, saying that Hisame would only agree to come if Yuyuhi came too. Yuyuhi said he wouldn't drink, but ended up joining the fun and getting quite carried away. Samadare's father was secretly watching from a distance, wanting to see how his daughters behaved. During the outing, Hisame revealed that she and her mother had traveled to France seeking treatment for Samadare 3 years earlier, when they learned that her sister had gotten better. Hisame returned to Japan to stay with her, but as soon as she arrived, their father left Samadare in her care and disappeared to focus entirely on writing books. Even though he was very successful, he almost never came home. Hisame admitted that she had never read a single one of his books and thought of him as a very absent figure. Her father overheard all of this and was deeply hurt by it. After the night of drinking, Yuyuhi realized that both Hisame and Hangetsu were so drunk they could barely walk. So he called Samadare to come and help. Their father followed as well, and Samadare asked her sister if she hated their father. Hisami said it wasn't hatred, she simply couldn't feel admiration for someone so lost in his own life. Hanjetsu commented that adults often force a smile just to give children hope. Yuyuhi remembered that both his father and uncle used to smile all the time. The next day, Hanjetsu woke up feeling awful because of a bad dream, and he reflected on his need to never hesitate again. At lunchtime, Samadare showed up at Yuyuhi's house to spend some time with him, and that was when she discovered that he was actually a fan of the books her father had written. Yuyuhi was shocked when he realized that the author of his favorite books was actually Samadare's father. Soon after, Hisame called, asking Yuyuhi to take Samadare out until evening, since she wanted to prepare a surprise, something like a family organized date. Yuyuhi asked Samadare where she wanted to go, and she said she wanted to eat, so they went to a restaurant, where Samadare ordered food and then went to the bathroom. While waiting, Yuyuhi was startled to see her father sitting right next to him. They started talking, and her father asked if Yuyuhi liked his daughter. Yuyuhi admitted that he did, but thought of it as friendship. Her father explained that girls usually don't see friends as potential partners, and then asked if Yuyuhi had any dreams for his career. Yuyuhi replied that he didn't, but maybe becoming a police officer. The father approved, asking him to take care of his daughter. He even said he would only give Yuyuhi an autograph if he came to the surprise party that night, which turned out to be Samadare's birthday. Afterward, Yuyuhi took Samadare to the movies, and they even spent some time at a play area. That evening, when they returned home, Samadare was overjoyed with the surprise party, realizing that her father had only returned because of her birthday. Later that night, Yuyuhi and Samadare went up to the rooftop to talk. She confessed that she wanted to grow up like everyone else, but that wasn't possible. She revealed that the only reason she had recovered was because of a spiritual queen residing within her body. The queen gave her strength, but once the battle was over, she would return to being weak. That was why she wanted to take the world down with her. The next day, their parents left on another trip, leaving Hanjetsu in charge of guiding Yuyuhi and Samadare. Yuyuhi told him that even though Hanjetsu saw himself as just an ordinary person, he admired the way he upheld justice. Before leaving, Yuyuhi gave Hanjetsu 2 movie tickets, hoping he would take Hisame. Hanjetsu was genuinely excited and felt accepted. Later, Hanjetsu noticed that Yuyuhi wasn't motivated to train. Yuyuhi explained that even if he learned from Hanjetsu, it would just feel like copying someone else's moves. So Hanjetsu invited him out for a talk, and on their way back, asked if Yuyuhi had ever named his own technique. Yuyuhi admitted he had never thought about it. Hanjetsu said he wished he had an escape ability like Yuyuhi's, knowing full well it had limits. He explained that even though he pursued justice, he wasn't the kind of person who would recklessly throw himself into the fire to save everyone. Since childhood, his father had taught him to prioritize justice, and he believed that with enough training, he could even learn to fly. Yuyuhi realized that for Hanjetsu, flying represented achieving anything, but at least he knew his own limits and dedicated himself fully. The next day, Yuyuhi kept thinking about what Hanjetsu had said, especially about giving his best to help Samadare. That led him to seek out Hanjetsu and ask for training, saying he wanted to grow stronger for her sake. He also asked why Hanjetsu had given up on being a hero of justice. Hanjetsu replied that it was because he could never fly, but Yuyuhi knew there was more to it. So Hanjetsu told him about a dog that had been like family to him. One day, while out walking, he saw a child about to be hit by a car. He froze, unable to move. The dog jumped in to save the boy, but was killed. Hanjetsu blamed himself for not acting in time, and decided he wasn't worthy of being a hero. In the end, Hanjetsu admitted that he knew Samadare and Yuyuhi had a plan that could make them enemies one day. But even so, he told Yuyuhi to work hard and be Samadare's hero. Ludo commented that if Yuyuhi ever managed to defeat Hanjetsu, he would reveal secrets about Noi's past. Shortly after, the group sensed the presence of another mud golem nearby. Thinking it might be waiting for them, they decided to go after it. Samadare tagged along, and as soon as they found the golem, it launched an attack only to be thrown back by Hanjetsu. Samadare tried to follow up with a powerful kick, but the creature blocked the strike completely and fled right after. Yuyuhi suggested they split up to search for it and chose to stay with Hanjetsu. He explained that golems always seemed to target him rather than Samadare, and that since this one had fled, it would likely come back for him. Even though Yuyuhi admitted he felt weak and was afraid of dragging Hanjetsu down, Hanjetsu told him that knowing your own strengths and weaknesses was the first step to growth. He explained that he often dreamed of standing in Yuyuhi's way as an obstacle, which which to him was a sign that one day Yu Yuhi would surpass him. That was when Hangetsu resolved to train Yu Yuhi seriously. While they were searching, the golem attacked Yu Yuhi again, but he managed to escape. The creature began evading Hangetsu's strikes, even taking advantage of a stumble Yu Yuhi made. Hangetsu jumped in front, pushing Yu Yuhi out of the way, but ended up taking a brutal hit himself. He rolled down the slope, gravely injured, and asked Ludo to grant his final request. Before fading away, he managed to say a few last words to Yu Yuhi, leaving him deeply confused. Moments later, Samadare arrived and destroyed the golem with a single punch, shattering part of the mountain. The news hit the papers, along with the announcement of Hangetsu's death. In the following days, Samadare threw herself into intense training, constantly talking about Hangetsu. While Hisame went to visit Yu Yuhi, she admitted that she might have had feelings for Hangetsu, since she nearly cried when she learned of his death. Believing that Yu Yuhi was also grieving, she hugged him to comfort him, but he couldn't resist and let his hand wander where it shouldn't. Hisame pushed him away immediately, but afterward they both smiled, and even with tears in her eyes, she forced a smile to appear strong. Back at home, Noi told Yu Yuhi that he could cry if he wanted to. Yu Yuhi thought to himself that even though he once wished Hangetsu would disappear, now he no longer felt that way. It was then that Mikazuki appeared, introducing himself as Hangetsu's younger brother, and also a knight who wanted to fight Yu Yuhi. But when Yu Yuhi refused the challenge, Mikazuki ran off crying. The next day, Yu Yuhi went to have breakfast at the sister's house and found Mikazuki there as well. He was returning a manga that Hangetsu had borrowed and even ate the portion Hisame had prepared for Yu Yuhi. At school, Yu Yuhi discovered that Mikazuki was in his same class, and on top of that, was quite popular. Later they spoke, and despite his brother's death, Mikazuki didn't seem shaken. He said he didn't blame Yu Yuhi. Hangetsu was only human, after all. Mikazuki insisted there was no point in dwelling on it. The mission of protecting the princess and the world still remained. He invited Yu Yuhi to play soccer, but in reality, it was just an excuse to fight. When Yu Yuhi refused, Mikazuki provoked him, saying he was too weak to protect the princess, forcing Yu Yuhi to react. During the fight, Yu Yuhi told him that Hangetsu had died protecting him, and upon hearing this, Mikazuki wanted to defeat Yu Yuhi to prove he was stronger than his brother. He had always wanted to surpass Hangetsu, and now he saw Yu Yuhi trained by him as the perfect target. But Samadare appeared, sent Mikazuki flying, and demonstrated a move she had learned from Hangetsu, forbidding the two from ever fighting again. Shortly after, Nagumo appeared, the eldest knight. He wasn't the brawler type and carried no weapons. He explained that there were 12 knights in total, and that he had already met 3 of them. The first was Loki, the owl, the second, Ku, the black cat, the third, Ja, the snake. Nagumo reminded them that their mission was to protect the earth from the Biscuit Hammer, and that they had to be ready to sacrifice themselves. Then he left, saying they would meet again. Mikazuki also remembered he had something to do and left, returning home. Meanwhile, Yu Yuhi thought about the possibility of having to face the remaining 10 knights in order to help Samadare. She, too, believed he would be able to defeat them. At the same time, Mikazuki went to challenge Nagumo, but came back complaining that both he and his horse were way too fast. Yu Yuhi didn't even pay him any mind, telling him to get out of his room and pay for the cabbage stalk he had eaten. Later, Yu Yuhi found himself wondering what Hangetsu's final request had been. The next day, he spotted 2 golems in the mountains. Unable to contact Samadare, he called Nagumo, who told him they should fight one at a time. Yu Yuhi remembered Noi's advice about the knights working together, while elsewhere, Nagumo ran into Mikazuki again. He acknowledged the golem's strength, but wanted to fight Mikazuki first. In another place, Samadare easily defeated a golem, though she found it strange that it was so weak without realizing she hadn't finished it off completely. Nagumo beat Mikazuki soundly, telling him he was nowhere near Hangetsu's level. The boy, frustrated, got back up to continue. Meanwhile, Yu Yuhi faced another golem. It didn't seem like it wanted to fight, but Yu Yuhi chose to confront it alone. Noi noticed Yu Yuhi wasn't in the right state of mind, and Yu Yuhi almost got hit until he was saved by Aoi, the Snake Knight. The two realized the golem had fled and didn't want to battle. Back at home, Yu Yuhi was shaken, realizing that seeing someone close to him die had stripped away all his courage. Later, Aoi appeared with her partner, Ji, and introduced herself. Noi asked if she remembered anything from the past, but she said no. So he explained that in an ancient battle, the Snake Knight had died protecting both her knight and the boy. Noi apologized, admitting that even though he had been protected, his knight hadn't lasted long. Ji replied that she held no grudges. Before leaving, Iyoi bluntly told Yuyuhi that he shouldn't fight anymore because he only got in the way. Right after, he asked Noi about the old rescue and learned that his sacrifice had been in vain, since her knight also died shortly afterward, not wanting Hanjetsu's death to be meaningless. Yuyuhi decided to keep fighting. The next day, he encountered another golem and went out to face it, completely ignoring Iyui's warning. Meanwhile, Sameder found the golem that had fled the day before, and Nagumo caught Mikazuki. Causing trouble again, he even considered breaking his arms and legs to make him learn. Seeing Yuyuhi recklessly putting himself in danger, Iyoi knocked him out so he wouldn't interfere, and went to fight the golem Sameder had failed to finish. Yuyuhi realized he was weak, but he didn't want to keep relying on others to save him. He dreamed of becoming a hero and joining the battles, and he knew Noi probably felt guilty for depending on Hanjetsu and mourning his death, since he hadn't had the strength to act on his own, since Noi had already helped Yuyuhi save his grandfather. Yuyuhi now saw him as a true friend and wanted to fight by his side. Driven by this will, Yuyuhi charged at the mud golem, striking it hard and sending it flying. At the same time, Nagumo restrained Mikazuki with his abilities and even landed a kick on him. But Mikazuki, using his own power, created several rebound surfaces to ricochet and counterattack Nagumo. To his surprise, Yuyuhi managed to imitate Hanjetsu's techniques, knocking the golem back and then slamming it to the ground again, leaving both Noi and Iyoi speechless. But the golem that had escaped earlier returned, absorbing the other and becoming even stronger. Sameder rushed in and landed a kick to its head, but it had little effect. Then she focused all her strength and delivered a punch so powerful it sent the monster flying, and that was when Yuyuhi realized. Hanjetsu had used his wish to pass down all of his combat techniques to him. Overcome with emotion, Yuyuhi broke into tears, and Iyoi remarked that if it weren't for him, she might have been seriously hurt. Later that night, Yuyuhi dreamed of his own sky, and Sameder appeared, saying she wanted to reward him for becoming stronger. But he refused, feeling he didn't deserve it, since that strength hadn't come from his own efforts, and upon waking, he realized he had made the wrong decision. On his way to school, he met Nagumo, who advised him to eventually accept Mikazuki's challenge to prevent him from causing trouble in a fight. Nagumo also mentioned that Iyoi wanted to thank Yuyuhi for his help, and that maybe she would lose his number, but he thought gratitude wasn't necessary. At school, Mikazuki approached Yuyuhi and proposed a duel, but Yuyuhi promptly refused, remembering Sameder's warning that the knights shouldn't fight each other. Besides, he believed Hanjetsu's techniques were unbeatable, so there was no point in testing them. Later, Iyoi called Yuyuhi out, and he agreed to meet her, but Mikazuki showed up, claiming he had taken Iyoi hostage and demanding a duel. When Yuyuhi arrived, she was fine, and she suggested he accept the fight, believing that part of Hanjetsu's techniques might be meant for Mikazuki, his younger brother. The fight began, but Yuyuhi realized he hadn't mastered everything yet, and Mikazuki pressured him heavily. Sensing the conflict within him, Mikazuki told Yuyuhi to think about what he really wanted. Yuyuhi still carried the desire to destroy the world with Sameder, but he was beginning to hesitate as he looked at the people around him. Shortly after, Mikazuki returned, calling Yuyuhi and Iyoi to witness something the body of the mud golem Sameder had defeated. From within it emerged someone Noi recognized as the sorcerer they were meant to fight. The next morning, Sameder and Nagumo appeared in Yuyuhi's room to introduce him to the Black Cat Knight, Ryu. When they went out to eat, Yuyuhi told Nagumo that the monster was still alive, and about his encounter with the sorcerer. Nagumo concluded they needed to gather everyone, and when Yuyuhi asked about the Owl Knight, he discovered he was only a boy and not ready to fight. Analyzing the situation, Yuyuhi noticed a pattern in the golems. Each had a number of eyes, from 1 to 7, but he had never seen any with 6. And Nagumo suspected someone had already defeated the 6-eyed ones, allowing the 7-eyed ones to appear. Later, Iyoi came to Yuyuhi's house to cook, and Sameder stayed for dinner. Soon after, Mikazuki arrived, introducing 2 new knights, Ikamachi, the Turtle Knight, and Subaru, the Chicken Knight. The chicken's familiar mentioned that both had already defeated a golem in the past, but Subaru admitted she had only managed thanks to the sacrifice of their master, the Swordfish Knight. The next day, Yuyuhi learned that only 2 knights were missing to complete the group, and not long after, both of them appeared. One was Kusakabe, the Rat Knight, and the other was Hanako, the Mantis Knight. night. The Owl Knight, Akane, was also summoned, and Samadair asked Yuyuhi if he loved everyone, believing that he might be the only one capable of stopping her after the final battle. He assured her that he stood by her side, and the younger ones grew uneasy with the stories of sacrifice. But Samadair gave an inspiring speech. The next day, Iyoi brought films to Yuyuhi's house, surprising him, and she mentioned her hobby of cosplay, but quickly changed the subject. In truth, Iyoi loved cosplay, but she was too embarrassed to show it. She recalled that when she first met Noi, she tried to drive him away with a wooden sword, but ended up listening to his story and using her wish immediately. He had wished for his family to keep smiling, even if he was no longer there. Meanwhile, Yuyuhi and Samadair found Nagumo training. He invited them for breakfast and revealed that he had once been a police officer, but resigned after arresting the son of the police chief and assaulting them both for covering up crimes. He explained that he never saw himself as a righteous hero, because a true hero would never do anything merely to survive and to win. That night, Yuyuhi dreamed of Samadair once again, and she explained that she could create that world and invite anyone she wanted. Ryo then revealed that he too could enter the Sorcerer Animus's domain, implying that they had already known each other for a long time. The Cat Knight already knew the whole situation, but Ryo still could not understand why Animus had such interest in him. Later, Ryo went to Isam to talk about theories and matters concerning time travel and other phenomena similar to it, even though such things were considered impossible at the time. On his way back, he ended up crossing paths with Animus. Knowing that Ryo dreamed of uncovering the secrets of the universe, Animus offered to help him pursue that dream, since it aligned with his own ambitions as well. He then tried to convince Ryo to abandon the Knights and join him instead, but Ikimashi and Subaru arrived just in time and forced him to retreat. Even so, Ryo was almost certain Animus would return. When that moment came, he went straight to the point and asked if Animus came from the future. Without denying it, Animus revealed that he had destroyed the world in the future and now wished to return to the past to witness everything from the beginning. Hearing this, Ryo decided to act, and he used his powers to create his own mud golem, declaring that he would use his strength to bring happiness to people and to put an end to Animus's fleeting desires. To his surprise, Taiyu chose to stand at Animus's side. Ryo ended up being pushed out of the confrontation and preferred to keep this information to himself, trying to better understand Taiyu's reasons, especially since he truly did not seem enthusiastic about helping Animus. Meanwhile, Yuyuhi was digging holes in the mountain because he wanted to try capturing some mud golems. However, he still struggled to improve his speed, and in the middle of all this, he came across a box with a letter addressed to him. The author wrote that he knew Yuyuhi would dig there, and so he had buried that gift. He soon realized it was a letter from the Swordfish Knight, who had already passed away and possessed the ability to foresee the future. Elsewhere, Mikazuki ran into Subaru on the road, and since both were after Animus, they decided to join forces. Yuyuhi, on the other hand, kept exploring and discovered the diary left by the Swordfish Knight, in which he told his life story. The knight revealed that he had lived for half a millennium, and when he was only 5 years old, he got lost at sea and ended up on a shore, where he met a monk who became his master. After years of training, he attained enlightenment and awakened the power to see everything. With that gift, he could foresee anything. But one day, the monk brought him a boy orphaned by war, who sought revenge against the samurai who had destroyed his village. The boy trained, but when he tried to fulfill his revenge, he returned defeated and ended up dying. Over the centuries, the knight trained many disciples, but all of them perished, and that taught him that in the end he was only human. One day, he met Ikimashi and Subaru, and at that time Subaru was crying because Ikimashi had eaten her lunch. The knight resolved the situation by promising to buy another if Ikimashi cleaned the park, and they eventually became friends. The knight realized that these would be his last disciples, and as his power weakened, he met the swordfish, who named him a knight. He told him that they had met too late, for he only had a month of life left. The swordfish then decided to help him leave as many teachings as possible for the other knights. He trained Ikimashi and Subaru so that they would work as a perfect team, one focused on defense and the other on attack. Shortly before dying, he confessed that even after 500 years, he was still afraid of death. When Yuyuhi reached that part, he did not even need to continue reading to know how it ended, and the knight left one final message, asking him to take good care of the princess. During this time, Subaru told Mikazuki about the battle against the six-eyed mud golem. Her master had been acting strangely, speaking about the murderous nature of the golems, and led the two girls to the mountain. He knew he would not survive, but wanted to ensure their safety, and to use his final moments to pass on one last lesson. However, the golem appeared earlier than expected, and even while using magic to protect them, he was pierced by the creature's thorns and urged them to fight back. Ikimashi pulled Subaru aside to come up with a plan, and at that moment, the Swordfish Knight observed that the lesson was incomplete. More than speaking of death, the master needed to demonstrate the importance of fighting and surviving until the very last second. Then the Swordfish Knight teleported, striking the golem's head, and asked the girls to finish the battle. Working as a team, they created a resistant shield that blocked both attacks and then transformed it into a weapon to defeat the creature. Their master reinforced that they should always cover for each other's weaknesses and act in perfect harmony. He also said that when they encountered Animus, they should remind him that even with all his knowledge, he himself was still only a human being. Although he wanted to call for help, the master asked the Swordfish Knight to let him see the two girls surpass their own limits and move forward. Not long after, he passed away, joining his former disciples. Subaru was devastated, for no one knew where he came from, and they acted as if he had never even existed, while Mikazuki regretted never having met him earlier. Days later, Yuyuhi and Samadare were training Hanako and Taru, and Noi suggested focusing on dodging to increase their chances of survival. Samadare approved the idea, shifting to attack so that they could practice evasion. In the middle of training, Mikazuki called Yuyuhi and suggested that the group should go camping, and Samadare agreed. So soon everyone went to the beach. Ryo and Nagumo went fishing, while the trio Taiyu, Yuyuhi, and Hanako stayed on the sand. Those who knew how to swim invited them to join, but they refused until Samadare shouted, and at that moment Yuyuhi rushed forward without hesitation. At night, Mikazuki wanted to drink beer with his friends, but Taiyu preferred to play video games, and the two older men went to the sauna. Teru, being underage, stayed in the water, and Mikazuki asked if he was dating Hanako, but he replied that they were only childhood friends. Teru's rat added that they were so close she would even climb in through his window, and Noi recalled that Samadare had also invaded Yuyuhi's room, which made Mikazuki jealous and sent him off grumbling that someone needed to save him. Yuyuhi went for a walk before sleeping, while Mikazuki ran into Subaru, who told him to take life more seriously. Meanwhile, Yuyuhi, walking along the beach, saw Samadare returning from the sea, testing new ways of using her powers. Ioi overheard Samadare speaking about destroying the world, but chose to keep it a secret since she had feelings for Yuyuhi. The next day, they detected the presence of a mud golem, and the group began climbing the mountain. Before long, they came face to face with the same seven-eyed creature that had already crossed their path before. At that moment, Animus appeared out of nowhere, capturing both Samadare and Yuyuhi and taking them through a teleport directly into the sea. Mikazuki ran after them, while Nagumo was entrusted with leading the rest of the team against the monster. Animus assured them that he had appeared only to speak with Samadare and Yuyuhi, with no intention of harming anyone. Meanwhile, the knight struggled to hold back that relentless creature that moved without pause, and they had no choice but to seek temporary refuge. Yuyuhi already had a plan in mind, but he needed an opportunity to make contact with the monster, so everyone agreed to distract the creature in order to create an opening for him to act, even though they did not know if they could defeat it without risking their lives. At the same time, Animus told Samadare that the anima within her was his younger sister, though not in the traditional sense. She had been created from an overflow of Animus's own power. What left Animus puzzled was why Anima had created this entire game simply to obstruct him, and Samadare finally realized why the hammer had not destroyed the world immediately. Animus, too, was bound by the rules imposed by Anima, but Samadare was not Anima, and she could not understand anything he was saying, and she charged forward with all her strength, unleashing a powerful blast over the sea, scattering water in every direction, and that impact drew the attention of the seven-eyed creature, giving the perfect chance for Ryo to approach. He managed to tear out part of the monster's core, but soon the creature turned against Hanako. Nagumo enhanced Hanako's wooden sword to help her withstand the assault. Ryo realized that the clay golem he had created earlier had been swallowed by the monster, and that he could not fully restore it. At that moment, Taiyu and Subaru forged weapons and attacked the creature with combined force. and all the knights delivered a devastating finishing strike that destroyed the monster once and for all. Samadare brought Yuyuhi back to shore just as Mikazuki arrived, only to discover that Animus had escaped. Hearing from Nagumo that the monster had been defeated, Mikazuki was left speechless, and as punishment for abandoning his companions, Nagumo declared that Mikazuki would be the only one not allowed to take part in the celebratory feast that night. The next day, Yuyuhi saw that Ryo had created clay golems with 2 eyes for everyone to train with. Although they were not very dangerous, the fact that Yuyuhi managed to defeat one alone showed that he was not as fragile as he seemed. Samadare asked Mikazuki to rest so that she could also try, and remembering Samadare's words about their dormant potential, Yuyuhi attempted to turn his ability into something offensive, similar to Zangetsu's technique. It worked, and she managed to strike and damage the monster's arm. And on the following day, Samadare appeared at Yuyuhi's house with her belongings, saying it was time to stay there for a while because she had run away from home. Yuyuhi ended up accepting, and Samadare explained that she had left because her mother had just returned. Not long after, Hisame arrived wanting to take Samadare back, claiming she was bothering Yuyuhi. Samadare thought of answering back, but fell silent under Hisame's serious gaze. Since Samadare refused to leave, Hisame decided to bring her to her own home, separating the two, and there she placed Yuyuhi temporarily in her father's room. Noi noticed that the relationship between Samadare and her mother was not the best, and later Yuyuhi received a phone call from his uncle asking whether he would visit the family home in the summer, since his grandfather was doing much better. Not ready for that, he said he would call back later. That night, Yuyuhi dreamed of Samadare, who confessed that she did not want to see her mother because she was always busy with work. And although she understood the importance of what her mother did, Samadare felt hurt by the lack of time they spent together. Meanwhile, Hisame was seen talking, and she appeared to be the anima within Samadare. She said that she had spent years in France with their mother, searching for a cure to Samadare's condition, and the fact that they only saw Samadare twice a year during childhood explained the emotional distance between them. The next morning, Yuyuhi woke Hisame to give her Samadare's message, and she said she would not eat breakfast. During training, the group complained that Mikazuki was monopolizing the practice golem, and Yuyuhi had to wait until he was finished. Hisame kept trying to convince Samadare, but without success. That evening, she invited Yuyuhi to drink some beers, and reflected that the distance between mother and daughter might have begun 4 years earlier, when Samadare had fallen gravely ill and remained unconscious for a week. At that time, Hisame had returned home because their mother was in France caring for patients, and this might have opened a wound between mother and daughter. Hisame asked whether Samadare might hate her mother, and Yuyuhi, remembering his own experiences, suggested that they should be direct with each other, that she should treat Samadare as an adult, and that she should not forget to smile. She went to try talking, but came back saying Samadare had fallen asleep before she could. Even so, she seemed encouraged, and the next day Yuyuhi told her that Samadare's mother would be leaving that night, and Samadare promised she would return home, so Hisame went to speak with her. Yuyuhi stepped aside to give them privacy, and Hisame apologized for leaving and going to France without a clear reason. Samadare revealed that she distanced herself because she believed her birth had destroyed their family, but Hisame denied it, apologized, and the two reconciled, though Samadare was still not ready to face her mother. Yuyuhi insisted that she should go, and Samadare leapt into the river. Samadare followed, using her powers, assuring her that if she was afraid, she would not be alone, and when they returned, Samadare's mother ran to embrace her daughter, crying. That night, Yuyuhi called the others, confirming that he would visit his grandfather, and the next day, they brought an unfamiliar person to training. Noi recognized immediately it was Anima, but he paid little attention to it, and then Samadare told the group about her presence. While most of them did not really care, the Beast Knight let out a deep sigh, and when he went to get food, Yuyuhi noticed a corridor that no longer existed, and Noi explained that it was something created by Anima. Upon entering, he suddenly found himself in another dimension, where the entire group was present as well. Hanako felt embarrassed for being in cosplay, but soon after, Anima summoned Nagumo's knight and transformed him into a unicorn, naming him the legendary Unicorn Knight, and after that, she dissolved the space and returned everyone back. Yuyuhi realized that the 12 Beast Knights were divided into 3 groups, and that each of them would be chosen randomly to become legendary. Nagumo was the first, while the other 2 still remained a mystery. And suddenly, a mud golem with 8 eyes appeared. Samadare called, saying she could not fight because Anima had drained all her strength, and she made only one request. that no one should die. The group gathered at the top of the mountain, where they encountered Animos and a creature with 8 eyes. Mikazuki reacted quickly and pulled 2 girls out of the monster's attack range. Ryu ended up summoning his golem into the battle, but the creature destroyed it in a single strike, using its tail covered with sharp spikes. It was then that Nagumo came from the sky in a dive, like a drill, and broke the enemy's tail. After that, Animos and the creature fled, leaving the knights safe for a moment, and during training, Ryu built a mud golem with 3 eyes and an arm on its head to assist the group, using sharp teeth as its main weapon. Yuyuhi discovered that Teru had the ability to increase molecular temperature in order to create fire, while Hanako could freeze any type of matter. The two of them did not care much about giving names to their techniques, but most of the others said that doing so made everything look more stylish. When returning home, Yuyuhi was startled upon seeing Anima hanging upside down from the ceiling of his room. He wanted to know what on earth she was doing there, and Anima replied that she wanted to eat. Yuyuhi then offered her instant noodles, but it was not enough. She asked for more. He agreed, but with the condition that Anima would tell him how he could help Samedare recover. Anima said that eating recharged her energy, and that she was transferring this energy to Samedare. Then Noi suggested calling Yaoi and Teru to cook something, since both of them were skilled at cooking, and Anima immediately opened a portal and brought them over. Yaoi felt awkward for being caught once again wearing cosplay, and after they prepared the meal, Teru asked who the other 2 chosen legendary knights were. Anima ended up refusing to reveal it, leaving everyone deeply intrigued. Later, Yuyuhi went up to the mountain to dig traps in an attempt to capture the 8-eyed monster. He created several setups to increase the chances of trapping it, and Mikazuki passed by. Yuyuhi invited him to have a beer, and the next day, Anima and the monster returned. The knights quickly regrouped, and Nagumo noticed that the enemy's tail had grown back, so he attacked first, using his drill kick technique repeatedly. But it became clear that he was being reckless, and he ended up being thrown far away. The rest of the group tried to support, but Nagumo, embarrassed for rushing in, refused their help. Teru poured gasoline over the creature's head and set it on fire, leaving it disoriented, and Ryu's mud golem held the creature for a moment, but it spun around, creating a tornado to break free. The 2 girls combined their techniques to attack, but they missed, and Nagumo pinned the monster down, allowing the group to finish the fight with ease. Later, Anima told Samedare that the knights had defeated the mud golem, and then she left to search for more food. The narrative then shifted to Taru and Hanako. On a regular day, they ended up becoming the Rat Knight and the Mantis Knight. The Rat Knight noticed that Hanako was more withdrawn and cold, something that matched the profile of the Mantis. Normally, courageous people receive the Mantis, while the more fearful ones ended up with a rat. Teru began to reflect about his wish, and at night, he discovered that Hanako had wished for the death of a criminal she saw on a news report. The Rat Knight did not approve and warned her that such a wish would bring consequences. But Hanako did not care and said she would accept whatever came. Teru then wished that she would survive a fatal wound once, and the Rat Knight explained that the wish would only work if she remained conscious at that very moment. Instant death would not activate the effect. And in the present, Teru already understood his own feelings for Hanako, but she had still not realized. While he was cooking for Yuyuhi and Mikazuki during a drinking session, the group encouraged him to confess his feelings. Samedare appeared to return a book she had borrowed after spending the night in Yuyuhi's room. Mikazuki made a joke about the 2 of them being in a relationship, but Yuyuhi and Samedare explained that there had been a specific reason for that situation. With the heat, Samedare suggested going up to the rooftop, and later, Taru invited Hanako to go up to the rooftop one day, but she did not show much interest. At night, Taru could not fall asleep, thinking whether or not he should confess, and the next morning, he trained his skills, inspired by Yuyuhi's technique. Suddenly, another mud golem appeared, this time wielding a spear, and accompanied by several smaller minions. The group gathered to fight, but the minions advanced and ended up separating the 2 men and 2 girls from the rest of the group. They decided to finish the smaller enemies quickly, while Samedare confronted the spear golem, which balanced attack and defense well, making it hard for her to gain the advantage. Yuyuhi stepped in to help, and Teru tried to support with fire, but became the target, and thanks to his new techniques, he managed to dodge, and upon seeing Hanako in danger, Taru threw himself in front of her to protect her, and both were struck by the spear. Before dying, Taru decided to confess his love, which Hanako already knew, and he burst into flames, forcing the golem to retreat, and then the wish activated, saving Hanako, though her Mantis Knight questioned why he sacrificed himself, knowing she would survive. Meanwhile, Nagumo's group was surrounded, and that was when Mikazuki appeared, asking them to hold their ground while he handled the situation. He created platforms to move, but transformed them into spears, just like Raingetsus, defeating several enemies. The survivors fled, leaving Mikazuki exhausted, and upon regrouping, everyone was shocked by Teru's death. Nagumo ordered a retreat while he finished the mission, and the girls were devastated, while Teiyu was filled with fear, and the Black Cat Knight questioned how Ryu and Nagumo managed to stay calm. Ryu said that no one is truly strong in such moments, and right after, Nagumo asked his former assistant to take care of Teru's related matters. She revealed that she had received orders to delete Nagumo's contact from Teru's Salinar, and mentioned a game, raising suspicions that Enemos was manipulating the police. Meanwhile, Mikazuki trained without pause, and Hanako seemed cold regarding Teru's death. Noi acknowledged Teru as a true knight, willing to sacrifice himself even knowing she would survive. And suddenly, Anima approached Yuyuhi, offering him power, and he accepted and was taken to Iwari. Anima explained that they would fight to decide who would inherit the power of the legendary knight. The two agreed without holding back, and Ayali used wooden swords controlled at a distance, while Yuyuhi tried to advance but was repelled and knocked down. Noi noticed that Yuyuhi still lacked the necessary determination, even with the strength of Hangetsu, and he began to consider letting Aioi take the power. But then Anima transformed her into a dragon. Aioi confessed that she liked him, and that she would stop him if necessary, and soon after, the group returned, while Hanako, irritated, tried to ignore the Mantis, just as Yuyuhi had done before, but she could not manage, and she left the house without an umbrella. Even as the rain started to fall, Yuyuhi went up the mountain to cover the holes he had dug, and there he encountered Mikazuki, who offered to help. On the way back, they crossed paths with Hangetsu, and Mikazuki landed a quick kick to his face. Yuyuhi attacked using his powers, and they both said that Anima had gone too far. The figure then revealed itself, and in truth, it was an 11-eyed golem. Yuyuhi, not understanding where the 9-eyed and 10-eyed golems had gone, was shocked when the 11-eyed one spoke, telling them that they had already crossed paths with the 10-eyed one. Right after, the 11-eyed golem transformed into Samedare, and the two decided to retreat for now. Later, Yuyuhi reported everything to Nagumo, recommending that he carefully check the abilities of everyone before making any decisions. Meanwhile, Hanako encountered the appearance of Teru. The two sat down to talk, recalling some things from the past, and Hanako remembered that when they were children, Taru was always nearby, but he was the one who cried first whenever something happened. Even when she got hurt, it was him who shed tears for her. It seemed that, over time, he absorbed all her sadness, and she saw herself as an older sister who needed to belong to him. And she even imagined that the two of them would go to college together. But when Taru decided to finish high school and follow the path of gastronomy, Hanako began to lose her own direction. She smiled for him, but when she saw his genuine happiness, she felt an emptiness inside, and in her attempt to recover her emotions, she decided to stay by his side, even knowing that this tarot was not real. Hanako still thanked them for their presence, since it helped her to regain her balance. The golem left saying that they would meet again on the battlefield next time, and shortly afterward, the 9-eyed golem appeared once more, and the entire team gathered wearing black in honor of Taro. However, Samedare was unable to appear, and preparing herself for what was to come, Hanako cut her hair and decided to abandon her studious demeanor to truly become a warrior. Mikazuki began to suspect that the smaller enemies were part of the 10-eyed golem's plan, and the group stayed alert against both threats. And at that moment, Nagumo and Aioi assumed their legendary forms that night to enter the battle. Hanako went up to Animos and asked him to let her take responsibility for the 9-eyed golem. Animos said he would consider the matter, and during the fight, Aioi and Nagumo managed to lock the golem's weapon, while Mikazuki launched an attack with spears. Hayu placed another golem in the way to block the creature's spear, shattering it, and with a combined attack, they forced the monster to retreat, but at the end of its path, Hanako was already waiting, firing a sequence of ice stakes and pouring all her feelings into the final strike. Ano commented that although Hangetsu and the Sword Knight were highly respected, Taro was loved in a special way by everyone and inspired. Hanako decided to follow the path of culinary school in his place. On one class day, Mikazuki surprised Hayu, offering him an easy job with very good pay, and curious, he accepted and was taken to an office where he would work as security. The boss, who already knew the brothers, hired Hayu immediately, just by learning that he was Hangetsu's apprentice. After eating a fine steak, Mikazuki called Samedare to join them, and she brought Anima along. During the meal, Mikazuki told about when he was in high school, and Hangetsu was already in college. He used to brag about street fights, but Hangetsu said that such things had no value at all in order to get a job. To prove his point, Hangetsu showed that Mikazuki still had much to learn, and Mikazuki blamed the defeat on the difference in age. Hangetsu suggested a rematch in the future. Even so, Hikazuki suspected that Hangetsu was hiding a secret and began to follow him, and it was then that Mikazuki ended up surrounded by a gang, who thought he was spying on Hangetsu for someone else. During the interrogation, he provoked the men and was eventually captured. They wanted to know what his connection to Hangetsu was, since he was interfering with their business. In the end, Hangetsu himself appeared and defeated the entire group alone, saving Mikazuki, and afterward introduced him to the boss, who was in charge of security and conflict resolution, and saw potential in him, asking Hangetsu to train him. 6 years later, Mikazuki was already strong enough to challenge Hangetsu himself in a fierce duel. Acknowledging his talent, Hangetsu then began taking him along for temporary jobs. After that, the scene shifted to Samedare dozing off, while Yuyuhi arranged a conversation with Mikazuki for the weekend. Anima declared that the winner would be allowed to go out with Samedare, and that night, Noi asked Yuyuhi if he believed he could win, and he said he needed to, since he wanted to train more with Mikazuki. On the weekend, Mikazuki told the girls about the duel, and Subaru's animal, Lee, suggested that Mikazuki's crow should say something, but Mikazuki replied that the last time it had spoken was when he was traveling through India. There, he had seen a girl dancing in the street, but since he had nothing to give her, she asked for bread, and the girls thought Mikazuki was rather strange. Meanwhile, Teiyu was delivering books to the 11-eyed mud golems, so they could learn more about the world. The smaller 10-eyed golems kept appearing out of nowhere, making their presence strongly felt by the knights. Seeing the huge number of enemies, they suspected there was a central core, and that while it remained intact, the dolls would keep appearing. Samedare rushed forward against them all until none were left, and Animos laughed and retreated. Even with the rain falling, Mikazuki did not want to delay the fight, and the two ended up entering Anima's domain, where she wanted to watch the battle. Yuyuhi removed his glasses and charged forward, while Mikazuki set up his special formation to move through the air. Yuyuhi counterattacked and struck him, making the fight even more intense, and Mikazuki realized that Yuyuhi was finally enjoying himself. Then, he was slammed hard into the ground, and the duel ended, and Mikazuki returned to his dojo. Admitting that he had enjoyed the battle, Mikazuki reunited with the girls and commented that Yuyuhi would probably be going out with Samedare, but Ikamachi said that he was already surrounded by girls and did not need to chase after her. Then Mikazuki decided to finally enjoy himself with what he had. Meanwhile, Yuyuhi regretted having to pay the bill for Samedare and Anima's appetite. The next day, the knights gathered, and Yuyuhi revealed that he had figured out part of the game's rules. Each monster had a unique name and appeared in a specific month, and he calculated that there were 12 monsters in total, with only the 9th having been defeated so far. After that, the scene shifted to Ikamachi and Subaru, since one night, while Yuyuhi was eating ramen, he came across Ikamachi and Teo. The young man asked what wishes they had made, but Ikamachi kept her secret while Yuyuhi revealed his. Teo was seeking inspiration, since he still hadn't used his own, and later Subaru cleaned Ikamachi's messy room. That night, Ikamachi trained intensely, convinced she had no talent for intellectual things like Subaru and Yuyuhi, so she wanted to build her strength to protect Subaru. Her animal, named Euron, warned her that if she became too strong, Mikazuki might want to fight her as well, and she replied that if that happened, she would be able to take Subaru away from Mikazuki. 3 months earlier, Ikamachi had met Euron and introduced him to Subaru, though Subaru had already met Lai, and the two had taken their animals to the master, who told them to listen to what the creatures had to say. That same day, the two girls made their wishes to ensure each other's happiness, while Teo once again delivered books to the golem of 11 eyes. However, the small mud golems reappeared and attacked fiercely, forcing them to flee. The knights regrouped to destroy these creatures. But even though the mission wasn't particularly difficult, no one could be sure if some of those monsters might escape. Samedare noticed they were tougher than before, and the following day, during a walk, Yuri was approached by Noi, who asked what he planned to do about Yaoi's confession. Yuri pretended not to understand what he was talking about and said he didn't want to discuss the matter, and not long after, he bumped into Yaoi again. Despite the extremely uncomfortable atmosphere, Yaoi decided to act as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Teo took the Golem of 11 Eyes to the cinema, hoping it would learn more about the world. The creature reflected that even though it was made of clay, it could still feel things, not empathy for losses, but a deep curiosity and a desire to understand. It also noticed that Teo didn't have a very close relationship with the other knights. They spent a day together, and the creature with 11 eyes even managed to switch places with Teo for a day just to see if anyone would notice the difference. Later, Teo climbed the mountain and met Animus, who gave him a sleeping bag to spend the night. Teo recalled the time he had met the Owl Knight, back when he wished to see everything destroyed, which had drawn Animus to him. Animus revealed that the former Owl Knight had also served him, and then offered an alliance. The next morning, the Golem of 11 Eyes returned, realizing that movies and real life were entirely different, when suddenly the small clay golems appeared again and launched another attack, forcing the knights to gather once more. They quickly realized the enemies were stronger and greater in number. Ryo ordered everyone to retreat because he wanted to test something. He sent a clay clone into battle, but it was easily taken down since the creatures had grown much more powerful, leaving him no choice but to activate the clone's self-destruction system to wipe them out in one strike. A few days later, Mikazuki was running through the mountain when he found Teo caught in one of Yuyuhi's old trap. When asked what he was doing there, Teo, afraid of being found out, claimed he was training, and Mikazuki believed him. That same day, Yuyuhi came across the two girls again in a ramen shop, and afterward, Teo went with Mikazuki to Yuyuhi's house for a drink, with the girls there as well. Yuyuhi said he wanted to return the master's book to them. They ended up sharing a meal together, and Teo seemed to enjoy that lively atmosphere. Later, Mikazuki escorted the three girls home. The girls handed the master's book to Teo, saying they had already learned everything they needed. After they left, Mikazuki remarked that Teo's parents might get worried, but Teo replied that his family was the opposite. Soon after, Teo's father arrived to pick her up, and Mikazuki went on his way. Afterward, Teo asked the Golem of 11 Eyes not to interfere so much, even knowing it was only worried about him. The creature then said it wanted to read the book, but Teo decided that he would be the first to read. She still held on to the hope that the hammer would fall upon the world, and days later, the knights once again faced those creatures, now even more evolved. They spotted a different one among the group and went straight for it, and Samedare was astonished when that creature transformed into a cartoon character. With a swift slash, the creature created an opening for other monsters to split the knights apart, but most of them managed to handle the situation, and with Hanako using a water source to fuel her powers, the three children gathered for their disjointed reunion. Only Samedare and two of the legendary knights stood face to face with the 11-eyed golem, and Nagumo asked Iori to help the others, but she ended up becoming the monster's target, forcing Samedare and Nagumo to shield her. Meanwhile, Yuyuhi chose not to fight, instead using his ability to locate everyone, and in doing so he crossed paths with Camildo Mikazuki, who had the same idea. The three children had descended the hill, but Subaru twisted her ankle while fleeing, and they hid in a cave. Keion found Hanako and rescued her before reuniting with the group, and the 11-eyed creature assumed Hisami's form to stop Samedare from striking. When Nagumo advanced, it morphed into the image of his son, but he did not fall for such a cheap trick and landed a kick without hesitation. Ryu arrived mounted on his clay creation alongside Samedare and Nagumo. While in the cave, Taiyu was being convinced that she would die if she stayed there. She did not know if Animus would betray her, but she also did not care for her own life if it meant living without love. Kumashi, irritated by that attitude, punched Taiyu and told her to stop giving up so easily, urging her to create good memories. When he asked about her powers, Taiyu revealed that she could rewind the time of anything, but only a little, and Yukamashi then asked her to use that ability on Subaru's injured ankle. The ability worked and the wound was healed, but the monsters soon discovered the cave. Fortunately, Mikazuki and Yuyuri arrived just in time to help. With new motivation, the group managed to escape, and Yuyuri lured the monsters into one of his traps, and with the aid of the two girls, they crushed them. Exhausted, Yufa was carried back home by Hanako. Meanwhile, Ryu's clay creation was destroyed, and the 10-eyed creature still stood strong. Animus appeared and decided to end the fight for now, as his minions needed to recover. In the conversation that followed the battle, Ryu revealed that the 10-eyed creature had a central core that replicated endlessly, and that Animus had likely hidden it somewhere, since they never found it. Taiyu thought back to the past and regretted not understanding her power earlier, believing she could have saved Taro. Upon returning home, she asked Kiruja about the Owl Knight, and Kiruja explained that after losing his companions, he was consumed by guilt and turned against Animus, but was swiftly killed. The owl stated that she would not interfere in Taiyu's choices, whether she chose to side with Animus or fight him. When she arrived home, Taiyu found the 10-eyed creature inside her closet and fought with all her might, and even though she was injured, she managed to defeat it. Animus appeared, declaring that Taiyu was the last legendary knight, and repaired her house. She also remarked that her younger brother had awakened the ability to see the clay eyes and had been the first to witness her courage. Later, Animus visited Taiyu, and unbothered by her betrayal, she told him she had never fully trusted him and left. Hanako called Taiyu, saying she already knew about her powers and the reason she had withdrawn, assuring her that she was not to blame for Taro's death, as he had no salvation left. After the call, Taiyu fell asleep. Days later, Ryu said he was out of ideas for new creations and asked the group for help. They sketched some drafts and went home. On the way, Ryu encountered Animus and his team, including the 11-eyed creature, which demanded that he craft something powerful to fight. Animus mocked him, saying the knights could be killed easily, and once again tried to recruit Ryu, but he refused. Animus considered himself a god, but Ryu swore he would drag him back to reality. After that, the two girls invited Taiyu to eat ramen, while Ryu returned home to work on a new project. The next day, Ryu gathered everyone to present his new creation. Inspired by Yu's drawing, Yaoi and Mikazuki volunteered to test its strength, and Yaoi, focused from the start, destroyed everything with a single blow, proving they were still far from being able to face the 11-eyed creature. The following day, Ryu asked Yuyuhi for advice on how to stimulate creativity, and Yuyuhi suggested digging holes. He said it was extremely relaxing for him. Despite being simple, mathematics helped Yuyuhi improve his physical conditioning, and they spent the afternoon digging. In the end, Ryu felt a little more inspired, and as soon as he returned home, Yuyuhi received devastating news. His grandfather had died in an accident. Even though Yuyuhi had wished for him to recover from his illness, fate once again acted in the cruelest way, leading Yuyuhi to reflect on how life and death follow their own path. During the wake, Yushi's cousin revealed that his grandfather used to write letters to him, but many ended up being returned without ever being delivered. She then handed those letters to Yuyuhi, and upon reading them, he realized they were all filled with concern and questions about when he would visit again. Later, he went to the shed and found the chains that had once imprisoned him in the past. Determined to leave everything behind, he threw them away and chose to forgive his grandfather for all the suffering caused. That very night, Yuyuhi dreamed he was talking with his grandfather. In the middle of the dream, his grandfather left toward his father's side, making him run after them, until he realized it was nothing more than an illusion. In Samadere's subconscious, Yuyuhi reached a gate where he met Anima. She explained that he was only able to enter because Samadere had invited him, but since her control over the space was not complete, the memories of these dreams usually vanished upon waking. However, Anima said she could allow Yuyuhi to retain those memories, and so she proposed a challenge. She hinted that the key to his guilt was starting to take shape, but did not reveal the reason for choosing him. Yuyuhi passed through the gate and began climbing Samadere until he encountered Hangetsu. This scene was identical to the dream Hangetsu had mentioned before, and his role there was to block Yuyuhi's passage. With no other choice, the two began an intense fight. Hangetsu acknowledged that Yuyuhi had learned the techniques well, but pointed out that his body was still not fully adapted. Even with Hangetsu dominating the fight, Yuyuhi used his strongest resource, spreading his energy throughout his body to gain more speed and strength, impressing Hangetsu with his mastery of the technique. This allowed Yuyuhi to defeat his former rival and friend. On the second step, Yuyuhi found his master, who was there only to observe. He asked about the two children, and Yuyuhi replied that they were fine. After a quick handshake, he kept climbing, and on the third step, Anima appeared and rewarded him with a kiss for overcoming the obstacles. She said that Samadere would forgive him but reminded him that he still belonged to her. At the top of the staircase, Yuyuhi finally came face to face with the hammer. The next day, the creature with eyes appeared again, forcing the knights to gather to fight. Without Samadair or Yuyuhi present, the monster took the form of a classic hero from old cartoons, leaving Nagumo very surprised. He had once played a villain against a hero very similar to that one, so he decided to fight, but only out of nostalgia. However, this hero was much more resistant and dangerous than expected, and the two girls had to intervene to save Nagumo. Mikazuki attacked, but felt the pain of hitting the creature's extremely tough body. Yaoi also managed to deal some damage, forcing Teiyu to heal everyone, while Hanako created ice to make it slip. Meanwhile, Ryu released a new clay puppet equipped to fire continuously at the enemy. When the dust settled, Gollum remained intact and declared that this puppet was still incapable of defeating him. He gave them 10 days to create a stronger one and threatened to kill their families if they failed. After he left, Nagumo decided to face him again once the deadline arrived. Days later, Yuyuhi returned and learned of the battle scheduled for 8 days ahead. He also noticed that the hammer had changed a little. Meanwhile, the two girls sought out Mikazuki to test power combinations. Hanako went to Yaoi to learn cooking. While the final strategy depended on Ryu and his new puppet, Hanako suggested that Yaoi invite Yuyuhi to train with her, since his agility would help in testing ways to capture opponents. Excited to try out his new speed, Yuyuhi trained hard, even though he was restrained multiple times by her power. They trained until nightfall, and when Yaoi invited him for dinner, in the middle of the meal, without hesitation, she asked what he would do about her confession. Yuyuhi said he had heard it, but did not understand the part that followed, and Yaoi revealed that she knew about his and Samadair's plan to destroy the world. He replied that such a thing would only be considered after defeating Animus, and that for now they could remain friends. She declared that she would do everything to stop him, and that if she succeeded, he would have to date her, and Yuyuhi said he would think about it. Meanwhile, the 11-eyed Golem finished reading the Master's diary and reflected on what set him apart from humans. At the same time, Ryu seemed to have found a solution to create a new puppet, and in the next battle, the two girls and Mikazuki used their new ability, reinforcing the mouths of his attack with their powers, forging spears that were hurled at the Golem, but even then he endured. Samadair charged forward with Chuda toward the others, forcing them to take action. Hanako used the fire she had learned from Taro, and together with Yaoi, she brought down an enemy, while the Golem returned to his original form. He summoned a hammer and struck down Nagumo, but Yuyuhi kicked him toward Samadair, who landed another blow, still insufficient. Then Ryu stepped in, asking what the Golem had been doing over the past days, and he replied that he had been reading. Ryu concluded that after each transformation, he needed to recover, and declared that he had uncovered the truth about the clay puppets. He summoned 3 at once, overwhelming and subduing the Golem. Before being destroyed, the Golem asked what his true nature was. Ryu explained that they were a reflection of the heart of the one who created them, and that his fondness for reading reflected Anima's thirst for knowledge. Satisfied, the Golem bid farewell before disintegrating along with Ryu's puppets. Animos also withdrew, and the girls decided to create a joint technique to face the next 11-eyed Golem. Ryu requested they reach the sky, where another weapon forged by Anima had emerged to counter the hammer. In the following days, they trained to merge their powers, but control was still difficult, and at night, Teiyu encountered Animos, who mourned the fallen Golem, for he reminded him of himself. The story then returned to the past, when Animos and Anima lost their family in a tragedy. They went to live in a research facility, where the director grew fond of them, and even wished to adopt them. However, it was revealed that the disaster had been caused by Animos himself, who believed his powers were special and capable of destroying everything. Anima tried to stop him and sought to seal his powers so they could live in peace, believing he could become a scholar through his love of reading. But the next day, the director encouraged Animos to use his abilities for research. Convinced, he began to believe he was a god, forged a hammer, and destroyed the facility, spreading chaos across the world. Suddenly, space ruptured, and the two traveled through time into the present. Animos intended to destroy the world once more, but Anima stopped him. She brought Animos outside and challenged him to a game, yet time after time Anima failed, resulting in the Earth's repeated destruction. It took over 100 years until Anima crossed paths with Samadair. At that time, Samadair had no idea who Anima truly was or what she sought, and Anima attempted to negotiate, offering to grant a wish, but Samadair had nothing in mind to ask for. Because of that, Anima began to follow her and observe her steps. One day, while Samader's mother and Risaim were away, Samader decided to go out and have fun with Anima. During this outing, the two came across an aggressive dog, and at that moment Yuyuhi appeared. This encounter was the first time the two met. Yuyuhi thought of taking the lost Samader to the police, since he trusted the force because of his father's work. But Samader ran away, seeing herself as someone who would be arrested. When Anima chased after her, Yuyuhi accused her of being a kidnapper. He threw a balloon at her and pulled Samader away. Then Yuyuhi told Samader that the police were not bad and revealed his dream of following in his father's career. Shortly after, Anima caught up with the two and introduced herself as Samader's guardian. She made Samader levitate and teleported away, leaving Yuyuhi believing it had all been his imagination. Later, Samader learned about Anima's 7-year plan and decided to use her wish to one day reunite with Yuyuhi. This choice ultimately drew her into the same situation everyone else was involved in. In the present, the knights had been training for 2 weeks to unite their powers, but the 12-eyed golem had not yet appeared. Anima appeared and announced they would have 1 free month to do as they pleased, but that at the end of that period, the golem and Animos's hammer would destroy the world along with her weapon. Time passed quickly, and the final day arrived. During the night, Animos entered everyone's dreams and set a meeting point to teleport them to the ultimate battlefield. Each knight prepared to settle unfinished matters before regrouping, and soon after, they were all at the usual meeting place. Animos appeared unexpectedly, greeting them briefly before teleporting the group, leaving only Anima and Samader behind. He led the knights to a distant region, but noticed he had forgotten someone there. He stepped away to give them a moment of privacy, and Yuyuhi wondered what would become of them after the fight. Onoi replied that regardless of the outcome, once the battle ended, they would all go their separate ways. It was then that Samader's golem emerged from behind the mountain immense, its size making it an easy target. The group unleashed a joint technique they had taken over a month to perfect, and a colossal beam of light tore off one of the creature's arms, as everyone readied for another strike. Samader descended from the skies and delivered a blow so powerful, it toppled the golem instantly. Yuyuhi broke off to help Samader, buying enough time for the others to charge their next offensive. He summoned the golem in the form of the Black Cat Knight, and upon seeing this, Yuyuhi reflected that fate was truly being shaped by 2 children. He realized how presumptuous it had been to think only adults should fight. Together, they fired a second beam of light, obliterating the upper half of the golem. A village appeared at the spot where it had fallen, but Anima explained it was nothing more than a creation of Animos. Animos then decided to activate his hammer, and Anima sent Yuyuhi into the weapon floating in space. She explained that he was linked to both her and Samader, and since neither of them had enough energy left, he would have to take control. To do so, Yuyuhi had to unify the fragments of his very soul, and when he placed his trust in the process, paths opened up before him. The first fragment represented a moment when he had lost faith in people, manifesting as chains that bound him. The second, in the form of a spear, recalled the moment he received the power of Hangetsu. The third, a cloak, led him to the activation switch of the weapon. He triggered it and managed to block the attack, but the shield shattered and the weapon was destroyed. At that moment, Samader used Anima's fragments to forge a golem in her likeness. The golem destroyed the hammer and absorbed its remnants, growing even larger. Animos was surprised but pressed on, teleporting his knights into the sky. They softened their descent by using Yuyuhi's technique. Mikazuki struck Animos in the head with a kick, and in response, Animos conjured spheres of attack. Anima noticed the barrier around the island and asked Samader to stomp on it periodically to keep him distracted. Meanwhile, Nagumo dove in to attack, but Animos switched places with Hanako, forcing Yaoi to pull her to safety. The two of them counterattacked Animos, revealing his regenerative powers. While Mikazuki shielded the girls, Samader continued to hammer the barrier, even Ryu's cat lending its aid. The villain tried to reclaim Tayu's power, but she used her wish to heal the group and prevent him from doing so. Furious, Animos destroyed Ryu's golem, driving Ryu into assuming a dark and powerful form. Samader charged at the barrier and managed to shatter it. In the final clash, Hanako froze one of his arms while Ryu and the children defended the others. Nagumo's steed, Dark, allowed him to mount, and together they struck Animos. Not understanding how he had been defeated, Animos realized the reason was Samader. and before he could react, Anima pierced through his body with the weapon carrying Yu Yuhi. In his final moments, Animos admitted he was a mortal, not a god, and Anima told him that if he still wished to understand more of the universe, perhaps he could reincarnate in another life to continue his search. When Animos faded, Anima could not hold back her tears. Mourning deeply that she had not been able to stop him sooner, she explained that the island would continue to exist because Samadare was sustaining it. With Animos gone, the battle shifted to the group against Samadare. At that moment, Samadare and Yu Yuhi revealed their original plan to completely destroy the Earth. While Samadare controlled her colossal golem, Yu Yuhi prepared to face everyone alone. He advanced swiftly, knocking down Nagumo and Yaoi, even neutralizing Ryu, who had been the most dangerous opponent at that point. Yu Yuhi made it clear that anyone who wished to stop Samadare would have to go through him. Hanako chose to withdraw to handle another matter, while two girls stayed close to Mikazuki to ensure that, injured as he was, he would not intervene. Now, only two legendary beast knights stood before Yu Yuhi. He lunged at Nagumo, hurling him against Yaoi, then criticized them for having prepared only to fight clay golems and not real people. But Nagumo declared that he would fight Yu Yuhi with everything he had, even if it meant breaking some bones, since this was the role of the elders, to teach a lesson to the younger generation. Yu Yuhi thanked him and asked that he not hold back, while Hanako fetched water to try to trap Yu Yuhi, but he managed to dodge. Yaoi created more restraints and succeeded in soaking him, but Hanako lacked the strength to freeze the water. Mikazuki tried to wake Tayu since she could heal, but amid all that confusion, Yu Yuhi accidentally lifted Yaoi's skirt, which made her furious, and she attacked him with full force. He barely managed to escape. At that moment, Yu Yuhi told Yaoi that he could not return her feelings because he loved Samadare and wanted to be the only one to stop her. Samadare had already anticipated this would happen, and she joined the battle remembering special moments she had shared with Yu Yuhi, such as on her birthday, when she first told him about her illness and how she could not live without Anima. Mikazuki realized that Yu Yuhi had given away Hanjetsu's power and understood that this fight was inevitable, and he also noticed that Yu Yuhi had become more optimistic and was enjoying life more. Although he was happy with his new friends, he wished time could stop so he could live all of that for longer. But time does not stop. And Yaoi even shared that she once knew someone who had suffered greatly from the loss of a loved one, but had managed to move on and find happiness again, showing that those who deserve happiness will eventually be given that chance. Little by little, Samadare noticed that Yu Yuhi was moving forward together with everyone else, while she was being left behind. She thought that they all would find happiness in a place where she was not. And suddenly, she awoke from this daydream and realized she had struck Yu Yuhi, throwing him far away. He managed to grab his weapon and his cloak, which suddenly vanished and turned into a power that made Noi evolve. Noi transformed into the Knight Lanterio, and Yu Yuhi believed he could now face Samadare as an equal. At that moment, Anima revealed to everyone about Samadare's illness, an incurable disease that made her live without plans for the future, valuing only the present. When Anima once took her into space, Samadare had been enchanted by the Earth and thought that if she destroyed everything, it would belong to her alone. But with time, she understood that it was the Earth that had taught her how to love, and this change made her rethink everything. She concluded that, regardless of the fate of the world, she could not go on, and that was why she wanted Yu Yuhi to be the one to stop her. The knights wished to help her, but Anima said that this would depend only on them. Determined to support Yu Yuhi, everyone united. Samadare began to rise to the skies to destroy the planet, and Yu Yuhi leapt to reach her, but failed, and at that moment everyone helped by sharing the burden of the fight with him. Tayu, upon waking, healed Mikazuki, who then helped Yu Yuhi reach Samadare. Yu Yuhi promised that if her time stopped, he would stay by her side until the end and would even leave the world with her if necessary. But Samadare did not want him to sacrifice himself, because she loved him more than she loved the Earth. Yu Yuhi managed to bring her back, and before she could apologize, the group welcomed her once again, and she cried, thanking them and asking for forgiveness. Anima then transported them out as the island collapsed and Samadare's weapons dissolved. The battle had ended, and Anima bowed, apologizing for all the trouble caused to them. Samadare's powers disappeared, and Anima recalled the knights who had departed. One by one, they bid their farewells. When it came to Yuyuhi and Mikazuki, they asked to use their powers one last time in a duel, and Anima agreed, understanding their wish. He also said that he hoped Samadare would find a better future before departing with the Beast Knights for a cycle of reincarnation. Meanwhile, Yuyuhi and Mikazuki fought an intense battle until nightfall, with even the spectators falling asleep. Suddenly, a meteor shower began, fragments of Samadare's weapon falling to earth. After a few more blows, their powers faded away. Noi cried, praising Yuyuhi as an incredible warrior and saying it had been an honor to fight by his side. Yuyuhi was moved and saddened by the farewell, and Mikazuki's crow spoke for the last time, praising his selflessness and wishing him victory. They fought until they had no strength left and continued to argue, and in the end decided to finish it with one last strike. But Mikazuki cheated and delivered a kick that knocked Yuyuhi out. He celebrated his victory, even if unfair, and the knights all went home. Samadare decided to fight against her illness and live, and when Yuyuhi returned to his room, he missed Noi. 10 years later, Yuyuhi was summoned by Anima of the past to wield his weapon once more before the final battle. He also wanted to know the origin of the 12 legendary knights, and Anima explained that they were the images she and Animus had seen on the moon. She told him that both were from the 32nd century and were descendants of Hangetsu and Hisame. Since Hangetsu had died, they would no longer be born, and Yuyuhi was happy to know that there existed a future where Hangetsu and Hisame were happy. In the present, Yuyuhi was just an observer, and his former assistant, now with Nagumo, pushed the work onto him. He had to ask Nagumo for help, and Subaru, Nagumo's assistant, was with Mikazuki, who was still marrying criminals off to the police. It even seemed as if they were dating. Taiyu and Hanako had opened a noodle restaurant. Ryu and Yaoi had been married for over a year, with him working as a university professor and mentor to Taiyu. While she looked after the house, Yukimachi had also become a teacher and was dating Taiyu as well. As for Samadare, after 8 years of treatment, she had been cured 12 years earlier through surgery performed by her own mother. She spent 2 years in France and was now returning. Anima was happy to see everyone doing well, and Samadare would help to keep this timeline stable. Yuyuhi went to pick up Samadare and her sister. Confident, she said she would take part in the Olympics and win several gold medals. Yuyuhi brought her to meet the group, and Nagumo paid for the party. Since he had wished to win the lottery 10 years earlier, Samadare gave everyone figurines of the legendary Beast Knights that she had made over the years. Thus, the battle that had lasted a year finally came to an end, and everyone went on with their lives. This is where our video ends. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments below what kind of knight you would like to be. I would definitely be the Rat Knight. But anyway, I'll stop here. Take care, thank you, and see you in the next video.